But I sent you an article about, it was written by this woman. I think she's a Jamaican American woman like myself, living in Chicago like I once did. She wrote an article titled, During COVID-19, Black Women Are Still Dying from Not Being Taken Seriously. Her name is Ashena
Exactly.
Robinson.
I read the whole article, yeah.
And she says in the article, for those who haven't read it yet, I'm definitely going to have the link in the show notes, that Black women are dying in the hospital because they're not being treated and their symptoms are not being taken seriously. And then The Guardian also reported an article titled New York Mother Dies After Raising Alarm on Hospital Neglect. They were reporting on Amber Rose Isaac, who apparently tweeted on April 17th that she could write an expose on dealing with incompetent doctors in the Bronx while she was pregnant with her first child, and less than 4 days later, she was pronounced dead after an emergency cesarean section that went wrong. And her partner had some interesting things to say in the article. I think the most like heart-wrenching part was when he was talking about how he's having to bring home a baby to a
That she
place.
fixed the room so nicely for.
Yeah.
And didn't get to hold the baby.
Yeah. So they had an interesting stat in that article. It said in New York City, Black women are nearly 8 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. 8 times. And they say it's about race, but is it about money? Are poor people not getting proper care? Or do you really think it's
I think there's
biased?
there's 2, and there's 3. And the first one is the fact that the person is Black.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually put aside and they take care of others first. Something is first an experience I'm only speaking from.
So you had that experience?
Oh, not with medical care, with other stuff where I have to open up my mouth and speak that I'm standing here.
In New York?
In New York, at Mercedes-Benz, when I had my Mercedes and I went to pick up my car, we in a line, everybody's in a line, and the lady look above me, look beyond me and call the guy behind me. And I say, excuse me, I'm standing right in front of him. You don't see me? So I've experienced that.
And the woman was white?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh.
So I only speak of experience. I'm not going to say every white person is prejudiced, because I would be lying if I say that. But it does exist in some situations where people don't exercise humanity. They don't see you as human first. They see you as a colored person. Or people of color. And the second one is money. Because if you don't have insurance, if you don't have a good insurance, you don't get good
care.
That's which is a fact.
Right.
Which is very sad, and it always happening to the lower sector people, and it's always the Black people getting the worst end of the stick. Always.
So obviously our system needs fixing, right? Obviously the system needs fixing.
It is not broken, it's crumbled.
Yeah. But I'm curious now on the empowerment piece. Like, what can we do? How can we empower ourselves to take care of ourselves? Because obviously
we need to speak up. We need to open up our mouth and don't feel like not because especially people get who have the free insurance, what they call that, where they give to the lesser, people can't afford it. Not because you have that, you are a person. What we have to first understand that we're human beings. And when it comes on to your health, you have to speak up. You can't just sit there and wait for somebody to recognize you. Speak up. Let them know you're standing here. You're here. You're here for a reason. If you go to the hospital and you feel sick, sometimes you got to scream like you're dying. Sometimes you got to throw yourself on the ground. But you got to speak up.
Yeah, I remember there was a big controversy about something like that. This woman that was in a long line at, was it a WIC office or something? And she was sitting on the floor with her baby.
Yep. Yes.
And then they ended up putting her in like jail.
She turned around and sue and she got money too.
Yeah, and then but the thing with that, like, it's great that we sue, right? Because obviously that's not right and they shouldn't get away with it. But at the same time, there is a traumatic residue that's left on the person that goes through that experience, and also the black community that's witnessing it, even on like social media and stuff like that. When we witness other black people experiencing trauma because of their blackness, there's a trauma, there's just this collective trauma we're all sharing. So my thought process is, because I don't put myself in the medical system like that because I don't trust this. And this is so funny that the woman that wrote that article, what's her name? Ashena Robinson. She said that she was on the phone with her grandma in Jamaica, and the grandma, who normally don't trust doctors because she don't feel like they know what they're doing, was the one telling her to go to the hospital to get help. And I'm like the grandma in Jamaica because from my own personal experience and in the times I've dealt with doctors and the way I saw grandma get treated at times, it just had me feeling like, you know what, I need to take care of myself for myself and not to really depend on the system, because the system don't care about me. They don't know me. I'm a number. They're not going to give me the care I know I deserve. So I have to give myself the care. So when it comes on to these women, I know some young women of color who are pregnant right now during coronavirus, which is it's kind of scary. If I was in that situation, I would probably be concerned, but I would feel like I probably would have set myself up with a doula or a midwife beforehand, so I wouldn't even be in the hospital to have this child. They would be at home and all this kinds of stuff. But
Well, the midwife it depends on where you live. Sometimes it's harder,
to
and
get
it depends
one
on your insurance. Yes,
for
and
them to cover
if
it,
she's getting help, she has to go to a hospital. So it's much difficult on her, you know.
if she's getting help.
A person who is wealthy, they can have their baby at home in a tub with flowing water and all this stuff. It's a different thing
Hmm.
than when you're talking about somebody who is with lesser income having a baby. It's not that easy. Very costly.
Okay, so my mom said it's very costly to have a home birth, but I personally know folks who have had home births who are not wealthy. So I wanted to invite an expert on the show to really speak to this. And so I have a special guest today, Ameka Ali, who's a certified holistic health practitioner, plant-based nutritionist who holds a bachelor's and master's degree in metaphysics and certifications in holistic health, prenatal yoga, and astrology. She actually is developing an app to connect folks to midwives and doulas and lactation consultants. And she personally coaches folks through holistic prenatal care and nutrition, home birth preparation, birth plan creation, and postpartum care, and all of that. So I felt like she, especially since she's already had 3 home births herself, she's definitely the expert to speak on this topic. Hey, Ameka, thank you so much for joining us on the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, so we want to know more about this home birthing situation because we just talked about how, Black women are being treated in the medical system and the high rates of mortality for women going in and pregnant and giving birth and not coming out with their babies in the last 2 instances that we just talked about. So I wanted to talk about this alternative that maybe could be available to us. But first, I want to go through some definitions before we have this
Okay.
conversation, just so that there's a comprehensive understanding about what we're talking about. So, what is a doula, and how is that different than a midwife?
Okay. So a doula provides emotional, physical, and informational support basically before, during, and after childbirth. And that's exactly what they do. They provide support. And when I say that, When they support you before, that's basically, you'll start to interview them between maybe 25, 30 weeks of pregnancy, because you're starting to do your birth plan and prep for the experience. The doula is there to help you with creating that experience. So I'll give you an example. For me, I interviewed the doulas. They come to they come to your home, obviously, because this is where the space that you're creating is happening. So for me, it's like, I want crystals in my room. I think I want to birth. I want to have a water birth. Well, I have three. I've done three home births. I attempted to do a water birth. I got hot and got out. But I was like, oh, it's too hot. I can't do this. But your doula is there to support you in all of that. They kind of give you your game plan. So it's like, look, when you guys come in, and you can have the choice of having one doula or two. I had two. And they come in, you sit down with them around 25, 30 weeks. You tell them, I want this type of music being played. I want incense. I want essential oils. If I'm in pain, it's okay to touch me. Please massage my back. Do all the things to make me comfortable. Postpartum, they will come and bring you meals. You tell, like, I'm a vegan, so, and luckily, my midwives were vegan as well, so it was easy for them. So they prep meals to make sure that you're fed afterwards. During the birth experience, if you get thirsty, you need to take a shirt off, you get hot, everything to just support you in the experience to make it as comfortable as it is possible. Because the midwife, her function is, she is the medical professional. The doula is exactly what I explained. They're there for support, emotional, physical, informational support. You have questions, want to know, is it okay to burn this scent if you're not educated on essential oils, or you want them to sage the house, whatever that is that you need to prep to create it. But the midwife is your medical professional. So that is the person who you're going to meet every 4 weeks during your first and second trimester. The farther along you get, you start to see her for your prenatal appointments twice a month. And then when you're in those last few weeks of pregnancy, 38, 39, 40, 41, she's coming every week to check you, just like if you were going to an OBGYN. It's the same type of schedule. You go to the hospital and you see your OB once a month to you. So it's the same system. So that the midwife is your medical professional. They're the one that is certified. They've gone to school. They've had the hands-on training to actually deliver a baby. They're doing your fetal monitoring. They're providing you with all of the medical essentials that you need, going over your blood work and all of that good stuff. But the beauty of a midwife versus going to a hospital is they're coming to your home. So it's very comfortable, and I have friends. It's funny because one of my best friends, we got pregnant at the same time. We were literally due the same day.
Oh, wow.
And this is with my first son. And I was like, well, I'm having a home birth. And she's, like, I'm going this traditional route. We had completely different birth experiences. Her daughter is 6 months older than my son because she ended up having her premature due to complications. But prior to that, her prenatal appointments were like 10 minutes. And every friend that I have, same thing. You're in, you're out. There's no intentional care involved. It's more like check your height, check your weight, measure the belly, see how big the baby's going. Let's listen. Is there a heartbeat? Okay, great. Bam. See you later. Every appointment. When you have a midwife, they're coming to your home. Your appointment is a minimum of an hour, hour and a half, because they're not just, they do all of that stuff, and the beauty of it is you're taught to have control of your pregnancy and your prenatal experience, because they say, okay, go to the bathroom. You need to urinate. They teach you how to read the stick. Okay, what is your pH level? Okay, check your own blood pressure. Okay, this is what this means. So you're very active in your own health through the entire experience. She's listening. She uses what are those things called? Fetoscope, I think that's what it's called, but it listens for the baby's heartbeat, and it's almost like a stethoscope. So you're not getting exposed to that radiation that you would in the hospital when they do those ultrasounds. That was another thing. My girlfriend was like, she had an ultrasound every single pregnancy, and to me, that set an alarm. I'm like, is that very healthy to be exposing to the baby to that type of those wavelengths of energy like every single appointment? I don't think it's necessary.
Mhm.
But you pick and choose what you want to do based on what you know. So with the midwife, everything is very natural. And then they will use a Doppler, and that's what you use when you're actually in birth. And it's like a battery operated, and you can hear. Then you have a little sound wave action going on, but that's because they need to hear like as the baby's moving through the birth canal and other things that are happening while you're in birth. But those are the major differences between a doula and a midwife. The midwife, is your medical professional, and the doula is basically like they're just your ride or die. They're your support system. It's like whatever she needs to make happen, we're going to make it happen. So she has the experience that she set for herself. That intention is carried out.
I see. Wow, the vision you
Yeah.
just painted makes me want to have a baby, and I have never wanted to have one. Like
Yeah,
it
it's
sounds so
really great.
nice.
Yeah, it is. Especially when I said that's why I tell people, I'm like, if you're healthy and you're able to do a home birth, you should do it. I mean, because I have my pink crystals and my sage burning and my Tribe Called Quest going. Like, you can't get that in the hospital. It's like
White
oh,
lights
and that's
and
another.
sterile everywhere.
Yeah. Exactly. And you can only birth one way, laying down. And anatomically, if you think about it, that's the worst way to give birth because you're going against gravity.
Mhm.
So that creates complications. So a lot of that's happening in the hospital too. It's like the gravity's coming down. So how is a baby supposed to come this way?
Right.
So that creates issues as well. So I've had children in the goddess pose, like literally squatting on the floor, being supported by my doula and my midwife catching my baby, where my 2-year-old standing at the door watching it all go down. I've had the baby on hands and knees on all fours, where my midwife showed up, and that was my last pregnancy, my daughter, and she came in an hour. So it was literally like, okay, she's here. I didn't even see her face. I'm just on all fours like this. And she's like, okay, she's crowning, push. And then with my oldest son, I had him in the bed. So, where that's the beauty of being at home. You can have that baby wherever you want to.
And
wherever
you just decide in the moment, or you plan that out?
Yeah. No, you don't have to. That's the thing. It's in the moment, where however you feel. Like I said, I had the intention of, I'm going to try water birth the second time around. So we got the tub and set it all up, and I soaked in there. My son's dropping Hot Wheels in it and feed him his strawberries. And I'm like, I am hot. I can't do this, because it's like a workout.
Yeah.
You're having contractions and your body's heating up. And yeah, it was not for me. I've had friends that had water births, and it was great. I tried it, but I get too hot. But yeah, it's like whatever happens in the moment, they're there for you.
So you said a midwife is the medical professional. Is she also a registered, or he or she? I'm assuming a man can also be a midwife.
Yes, I've never met one, but I assume so. Yes.
And they're also a registered nurse?
They can be. Now, there's several types of midwife. So there's a certified nurse midwife, a CNM, and they went to college and they majored in nursing, and then they got maybe a master's in midwifery. So they are a certified nurse midwife because they're trained in midwifery and nursing. But you're only going to interact with them in a hospital or a clinic session. In the United States, they mostly just work in the hospital. So I had the experience where, because I was doing that's another thing. When you have a home birth, a lot of times the midwife, if she's not affiliated with a hospital, they'll want you to set up kind of like co-care. And that is so that you can like get the traditional blood work and things like that going. So with my first birth, my intention at first was to go through a birth center. So I was going to birth them at a birth center because I was like, I think our place is too small. So let's do that. But later on in the pregnancy, that didn't work out because I had some ethical conflicts of interest with the system. But with them, they had all that established. So I did all my blood work and all the typical stuff. that you would do. They do these GBS tests to make sure you don't have that you can have strep in your vagina and in your anus, and you don't want to pass that to the baby. So different little tests like that. They want to make sure you don't have gestational diabetes, because some women develop a form of pregnancy diabetes, all that kind of stuff. So with my midwife, I established care. And so I would see a certified nurse midwife. But if you choose, when you do that, I just telling all the listeners, you go in there and you let them know, like, look, I'm having a home birth, because they'll try to tell you something contrary. Just be like, yeah, I don't hear what you're saying. Okay, I'm here. I'm establishing care. I'm basically here to just do all my vitals and get my blood work for my midwife. And I'm having a home birth. And pretty much that's it. I'll see you when I see you. You have to be very firm, because medical professionals, they aren't trained in home birth. And so getting back to the education of midwife. So certified nurse midwife, you're only going to meet in the clinic and the hospital. Then there's the certified midwife who has a background in health education. Maybe they majored in healthcare in some form of field, but then they get some master's level education in midwifery. So there's that midwife, but then there's also the certified professional midwife. And that's what the majority of midwives in the United States are. And they are the only ones that are actually trained and required to have knowledge in the out of hospital birth experience. So my midwife is a certified professional midwife. She went to school, and like I said, they have to be trained in out of hospital experience. So she told me she went down to Texas at the border. They have a big training there. A lot of midwives I've met have gone through that, and they've literally had to catch like 1,000 babies. They've had to have that hands-on out of hospital experience. So they're the most educated, because they're required to have that knowledge. So the nurse midwife, she's not trained to birth out the hospital. That's why you only find them in the clinics and the hospitals, because they just had a traditional American Medical Association education, basically. And the same with a certified midwife. They've gone to college for some type of healthcare background and decided, I think I want to be a midwife, so let me go get this education. And so maybe they enter into a master's level midwifery program because they have the science credits. Maybe they were a biology major, so something like that. But the majority of the midwives, all of the midwives birthing at home, are going to be a certified professional midwife. And then there's what's known as a traditional midwife. And they don't have any type of training, but maybe for religious or mostly probably religious purposes. If they're from a certain type of community, there's just someone there that just knows how to birth. Kind of like in ancient times, there was somebody that
was
there
my
to
grandma.
catch those babies. Yeah. So that would be known as a traditional midwife. So they know everything they need to know to bring that baby into the world.
I see. So then how do you get connected to a midwife and a doula? And like, does the doula also come with the midwife and the hospital that you're working with? Like, how do you get connected to them?
Gotcha. No, that's research, and it's funny. You, especially if you want to have a midwife or a doula that looks like you, it requires some research. When I was pregnant with my first son, I didn't even think they existed. I'm like, why can I not find a sister that's a midwife? And I live in the Bay Area, and I literally found like 2 at the time, maybe 3. Yeah, one was like in LA, and that was too far for me. And then one was like in Sacramento, and I'm like, okay, that's like 2 hours. I can't commute like to get prenatal appointments. So it was really tough. So at the time, there was an organization that existed that doesn't anymore. ICTC. And what I've later found out was Erykah Badu became a doula. A lot of people probably heard that she went through that program. They've kind of restructured and they're doing something different now. But I discovered them on Google. I called and I'm like, hey, I'm 30. I was 34 weeks pregnant. And I'm like, I was going to birth at a birth center and something happened and now I need a midwife and I want to birth at home. What do I do? So they had like a directory. And so I was able to find my now current midwife through that directory. And like I said, she's one of a few. unfortunately, history has shown that we were the ones that were birthing, that were the midwives, the majority of midwives in America for a very long time. But then when the medical system created obstetricians and medical schools created obstetrics, it was like, oh, we need to get these women into the hospital because we need to practice on them. So then there was this whole political campaign that like midwifery's dirty and you need to come to this sterile place called the hospital. And so that's how the transition from home birthing and midwifery really shifted. But at the same time, it was never really a space for us because, you know, we couldn't even come to those hospitals at one point in history. So, you know, it was a lot of, we're trying to create a new medical system. We're trying to create clients for this new education that we call obstetrics now, and we just need to get you in there. But it was never like to the benefit of your health. It's, if you start researching like the history of birth in America, it's kind of scary. Kind of scary. But I'm sorry. Look, I got off track.
No, I mean my mind is blown right now. It makes sense just given what Black women have gone through in the medical system historically, and it's just
Yes.
really unfortunate and disappointing that we're still having these conversations right now. You know,
Yes,
in
yes.
2020, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that leads me back to that. So it was never really the institution of it was never created for us. So this issue that we're having now where it's every 3 in 1 is dying, and that doesn't mean immediately. That also includes 1 year postpartum. So women are going home with their children, and that mortality rate includes up to 12 months of childbirth. That complications are happening and they're not living.
Right.
And it's really unfortunate. But for me, when I first found out I was pregnant with my first son, it was never an option for me because I knew these things because I've been on a holistic path for a while prior to getting pregnant anyway. And so I was like, I don't see the point in going to a hospital. You know, that's where people go to die. So I'm like, that's where sick people are. So I don't want to be there. And and then when I found out just the general things that have to happen when you give birth, because I don't think people think about there's certain requirements. When you sign that contract, you're signing over your child, you're signing over your rights. And whatever they feel that they think they need to do for you, they're going to do without your consent, even if you have, because there are doulas that I know that are like, you know what, we had to have an emergency evacuation to the hospital. Something happened. And those doctors will not respect your birth plan. They will try not to. And that's why it's very important when you choose a doula, choose someone that's going to be strong enough to say, you know what, this is her birth plan and we are going to try to stick to it as close as possible. Like she doesn't want Pitocin. She doesn't want this. She doesn't want that. When the baby comes out, she wants the baby put on her. She wants you to delay cutting the cord. All of these things that you don't have to be concerned about at home, but they're just like, pull the baby out, snip, wham, bam, take your baby off, start giving it shots because they immediately give the baby like vitamin K and they inject it with all these basically vaccines, for lack of a better word, because they're concerned, well, she might have gonorrhea or chlamydia, so we just give it to you anyway. Even though you've been tested and you don't have anything, they're still going to give the baby this dose. They're going to give the baby the vitamin K. Vitamin K is supposed to help with the blood cells so that the baby doesn't develop jaundice and yellowing of the eyes. But there's natural things for that. You can drop a little breast milk in your baby's eye the first few days. You take it out and give it sun baths. My baby sunbathed 15 minutes on each side. They've never had jaundice. They've never had anything. So there's natural remedies to all of these things, but you don't get those options there. So you need if for some reason you have to evacuate to a hospital, you need to have a strong doula that's going to be there to advocate for you the best that you can, because they're just not trying to support this. And it can be a very ugly situation. So, you know, and I was like, I'm just not doing that. So I was like, I'm not even putting myself in that situation. And it's worked out for me. Like I said, I've had 3 vegan, holistic pregnancies, 3 home births, no complications, and I'm pregnant right now. And I am going the home birth route again. It's just not an option.
Yeah.
So if you are healthy and able, do it.
Yeah, I mean, right now with COVID and all of these, sick people in the hospital, I mean, you're set up really, really nicely since you already have your midwife and everything. You have your birth plan and all
Mhm.
that. So the plan is to have it at home. That's awesome. So I'm
Yeah,
wondering, like,
yeah.
the question is, do you have to have money to have a midwife and a doula? Is that covered by the insurance?
It is not covered by insurance at all. They don't like all of your blood work and those types of things.
Hmm.
Yes, that will be the midwife will write up the lab work forms, and you take it and go to LabCo or wherever, and all of that is covered. But the actual fee for her, it is not, because they don't consider, they just keep it separate. They don't really respect the profession, so to speak. So
Mm.
insurance won't cover it. But
That's
it's you don't have
specifically
to
the
be
doula or the
the
midwife?
doula or the
Oh,
midwife.
wow.
Yeah, so but they're not as expensive. Like, you don't have to be wealthy. I mean, I'm not wealthy. There's a couple of different options. When I went with the birth center, that was $6,000, but not upfront. That's from the moment that you find out until 41 weeks later and after. So you can space it out to be like, you know what, I'm going to pay you $500 a month or 250 a month. Like midwives, they work with you, you create a little payment plan and you just stick to it. So that was 6,000, but that was a birth center. Now, birthing at home is less because you're not paying to be in their facility and all of that stuff. So I've paid as little as $1,200.
Hmm.
My midwife, yeah, she charged me $1,200 the first time, mostly because she picked me up at 30 something weeks. So she supported me through that, the payment for the birth, and then postpartum care. And that's another thing. You birth at the hospital, you have a baby, whether they let you stay 24 hours or 48 hours and then you're out and that's it. No, your midwife is coming every single day, twice a day for a couple of days. She's checking you, she's massaging your uterus, making sure that it's moving back into place, that there's no blood clotting or swelling, checking the baby, and then a, and then weekly for a while, just to make sure everything is okay, and just seeing how you are doing emotionally and how the baby's doing and how you're adjusting and all of that.
Wow.
Um,
All that for
yeah,
1200. That's a
all that
deal.
for 1,200. Yeah, so it's like you don't have to be wealthy. Now this time around and the other times, interest inflation has been years. My oldest son's about to be 8. So now she's charging 3,500, but still, I mean, I'm paying her 250 a month. Like,
Mhm.
so I'm like, you have to, pick and choose your battles. Figure out what's your priority. Is 250 more important, knowing that your baby's not going to get injected with some unnecessary drugs when you push them out, or you know, you or you're going to be feeling a certain way in the hospital and they're not going to be respecting what you say because they don't believe you, because
Mm.
for some reason they think sisters just have this high tolerance for pain. And it's like, oh,
It's like, how
you
do you even teach that to the new generation of folks? Like, I just don't even understand the level of implicit bias that folks have. Is just, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and it concerns me still because I know Kamala Harris, that was the California, our senator out here,
Hmm.
and she was one of the people that really kind of helped bring it to the forefront that 3 and 1 of us are dying in the hospital, and then what happened with Serena Williams, that helped to bring it, but that's been happening. And unfortunately, in certain communities, in certain parts of America, I mean, you look at Detroit, you look at Chicago, you look at some other cities, and I mean, the numbers are, it's
Worse.
not 3 and 1, it's like
Yeah.
8. It's bad. And I know that she had this initiative to where they were supposed to be learning she want to implement in the medical school, something to do with cultural bias, like
Yeah. The
having this.
implicit
Yeah,
bias training.
but the thing is, certain things are just like subconsciously ingrained. It's like, even if I'm not going to say everyone that doesn't look like us is a racist or anything like that, but it's
Hmm.
like that medical professionals, yes, he or she is going to be professional and give you the prenatal care that they need to check off the box to provide you. But are they really going to hear you and understand you even with that type of training, because some things are just so ingrained. It's kind of in your DNA. You don't even realize. So for me, I'm like, I just don't want to take that chance. I just didn't want to take the chance. Like, he might be cool, but maybe she is cool. And maybe it's not intentional, but that means nothing when I'm half dead.
Seriously. It's so sad. It really is sad. But it's good to know that there's this other option. And the other option is so beautiful. It's like, I'm thinking now, Serena Williams, did she even know this existed? Because why even deal with the hospital?
I know.
Even if you didn't know that doctors were biased, or racist or anything like that, like, it's just to set up your whole environment to just be the ultimate self-care, cave,
Yeah, it's like your self-care Sunday for 12 hours or 8 hours or however long you're in, you're in labor.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what? She may have, and a lot of people, even if they've heard of it, they don't consider it because of course, it's a conditioning. People just think, oh, it's 2020. I need to be birthing at the hospital. You just think that's better because, again, there was a campaign on midwifery that happened in the 40s or the 50s that has it worked. It worked.
And all of what you're saying makes sense because there are parallels to this in other areas of our system, So,
oh yeah.
So it's crazy. How can people find you online? Because I know you have a app or something to connect folks to midwives and doulas, right?
Yes. So I'm certified holistic health practitioner, and my focus is prenatal care. So they can find me online at hiremymama.now.site. That's my site where you can book consultations with me, and I work one-on-one with women, and then that's including the holistic prenatal care. That's talking about your resources, finding your midwives, doulas. I'm basically like your home birth coach, helping you set up your birth plan and what you need, greening your environment, because there's other things that women don't think about, like you might have to throw out all that makeup you've been wearing and detox because there's phthalates and parabens and sulfates and the shampoo and all of that's going into your skin, which is going into your bloodstream. So I go through that whole process. I'm on Instagram at HigherMindMama, HIGHERMINDMAMA. And they can always email me too. My email is Ameka, AMEKA, at hiremindmama.com. So, and then about the app, yes, I'm working on an app. In my free, I like to learn lots of different things. So I became a full stack software developer. So I'm currently working on an app. And because of this issue that I had where it was like, how do I find a midwife? How do I find a doula? I'm developing a Yelp style app for that purpose. So if anyone wants to get on my email list, so when it launches, they'll be the first to be notified. So practitioners, so midwives, doulas of color will be there. Alternative healing practitioners, all of that will be listed in that directory. So people can actually see a picture of a doula and see other ratings. So they can be like, oh yeah, she says she does this, this, and that. Oh yeah, I think I want her. You can get that. And right now it doesn't exist. You just kind of have to go off. Somebody told me about this doula. Like, I'm going to call her. If you can find her.
Yeah.
It's like a needle in the haystack thing. We're just not connected. So I'm creating an app to make that happen.
I love it. And I already can see it's going to be a huge success because it's a huge need in the marketplace. And thank you so much for coming up with that, having your own experience actually, propel you into this business venture. I think it's awesome. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing all this information. I learned so much. I'm
glad. I'm always happy to share it. I'm like, everybody, birth at home. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm trying to get pregnant now so I could do this. I'm all hyped. Thank you.